Hello and welcome to another great episode. I know it's going to be great episode of the Optimize Show. I'm Dave Amano, your host. Before we get started, thank you so much for watching. Every Wednesday morning we have a new show. And if you want to help us, which we would really appreciate, please go on YouTube, share it, subscribe, all that great stuff. Go on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. And give us whatever you can give us. A thumbs up, the like, helps get this great content out to our community, so that all the best practices we're getting from our guests will just go raise all the ships with the high tide. So thanks again. Now today I have on the show, I'm really excited because he's not only a special guest, he's just a friend, and I think anybody that ever has, I feel special, but I think anybody that's ever met Paulie just instantly falls in love with him. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And I think the same about you too. Forever since the first interaction I ever had with you. Yeah. So that's my kind of guy.
Oh, I appreciate that.
That's my guy.
Yeah, I felt the same way about you.
Yeah. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I just called you Paulie.
That's fine.
I didn't even say your last name. Yeah, it's like you're like Madonna. Like everybody knows you, So, so Paulie, I'm going to say it the Italian way first.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Paulie Gugliemo.
Oh, perfect.
Right? Yeah,
yes. Rolled off the tongue with you. Oh, thank you for that. Thank you. I think this is the first appearance I've ever done anywhere where it was pronounced correctly.
Right? Yeah, that's how they would say it in Italy, right?
Yes.
But how do they say it here?
We got beaten into Guglielmo, which is good because I do have a family that Americanized and went with Williams, which is like the translation. So I'm lucky I didn't end up on the side of the family that went Williams.
Right, yeah, Williams sauce just doesn't have the same punch,
Yeah, no,
right?
not exactly,
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've nailed Guglielmo.
Guglielmo. Oh, it just sounds, it's melodic, like many Italian words are, right?
Yeah.
So Paulie, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for coming to Rochester. You came to Rochester from Ohio, I believe, many years ago to work with Brother Weeze at iHeart.
Yeah.
And that's what got you here. So you started out as just a radio personality and producer.
Yeah. I was in Ohio and I was we called it voice tracking. So in between songs on a country station, when the DJ comes out and says, "Hey, make sure to check out the website for information on how you can go to this weekend's hoedown, Jefferson County," and then I would, and here is a Carrie Underwood. Right. That was all I ever did. And then finally got to move to Rochester. I originally actually came here to do Top 40 on a station called Kiss 106.7.
Sure, yeah.
Which I think still exists, and did the same thing. But then the radio station hired this guy named Brother Weeze. Oh. He came from across the street, which in radio is, the term across the street means he worked for the other guys.
Other side of the tracks.
Now he's coming to our side. And so I remember I was not from here, so I actually did not know him. Yeah. But I gathered that he was legendary, and I'll never forget that first day he came up to our studios and I got to meet him, and he reminded me of my grandfather. He was just like this, I shouldn't use the word old, but he was like this old, tattooed, wise. He was this wise, wisdom-filled, just man of tattoos and a loud, gruffy voice and vulgarity. Yeah. He was vulgar, and I was like, "This is cool. This guy does right. This is awesome." With this
guy, yeah.
So I asked for a job with him, and I got turned down.
Yeah.
Not by him, by the bosses. And then I asked, could I be the backup producer? Could I be the backup phone screener? Was the one they finally said yes to. So that was how I got on the Weeze shows. I was the backup phone screener.
Right, yeah, you just whittled your way in.
Yes, yes. And luckily the girl who was the phone screener was a new mom, and so she took a lot of sick days. Yeah. And I got to go and be the phone screener.
And they were like, "This guy's good."
Well, I got lucky because Weeze is not, Weeze is, the reason people love him is because he's not a polished radio guy. Yeah. So when he's sitting doing the show, just like you and I are, he's looking around everybody, every tool he's got. So if he sees the phone screen kid, he'll be like, "What do you think, bro?" Right. And so I got the opportunity to be on mic with him several times. And I think he liked the fact that anytime he went to me, I came with something. I had something ready to go.
Yeah, you were witty and you could talk. And
I gave, it was like improv class. It was like, it was yes and. He would come to me and I would always, back to him, and there were other times I saw he would go to people and, they just kind of go, no.
Yeah.
What do you think? And they would just go, I don't know.
Yeah. Moving on. Paulie? Yeah. So you became kind of a co-host, right?
Oh, over time, yeah. So originally it was backup phone screener, then it was producer, then it was executive producer, and then it was producer / co-host for the last few years. Yeah.
And you did that from when to when?
2010 to 2020, straight up decade.
So, all right, so
almost
10
exactly
years.
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then why you're on the show now, drum roll please, is because you became an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I met you. We we're trying to figure out what year, maybe 6-7 years ago-ish.
Yeah.
We were on a panel together for, I think it was like RIT students, and they had a panel of distinguished entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Distinguished.
I snuck on there.
Yeah. They let me in the door. And so I met you the first time, and as you said, we hit it off, and you were like, yeah, I have this new sauce. You're Italian. I don't know if you're going to like it, but most people like it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, anytime somebody with the Italian last name, or anyone who is a chef goes to try my sauce, I'm always like, maybe don't. Right. You know, like maybe you know your sauce.
Out of all the bottled sauces that I've had, yours is my favorite.
Oh, thank you,
I'll
sir.
give you that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So you are an entrepreneur, and you started Guglielmo's Sauce.
Yeah.
And it was actually called Homegrown Marinara.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And so tell us, I mean, what happened? You had a successful career in radio.
Yeah.
And was something pulling at your heart? I know that you
Totally.
you admired your grandfather's. In
Yeah, I
sauce.
grew up with that Italian tradition of Sunday sauce, and we did it at my grandpa's house. And when I moved to Rochester, I moved away from Ohio, as you mentioned, and now I missed Grandpa. I missed Sundays. I was missing Sunday sauces, and it stunk. And so I really wanted to pay homage to that, and then I saw my grandfather was getting older. I knew he wouldn't be around forever, and I just thought, like, over the course of his life, I saw so many people say to him that thing that we all hear: "You should bottle that sauce, Pete." Right? And I thought, I want to do that for him. I want to do it for him. I want to bottle his sauce for him.
Yeah.
And so it was a Christmas present. The original thing was a Christmas present. So my grandpa could walk into one little grocery store in our hometown of Conneaut, Ohio, and see his name and his face on a jar of sauce.
Wow, he put his face there too.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so that it happened. It happened, and then all of a
fantastic.
sudden I was like, wow, mission accomplished. Where do we go from here?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so then you said I could make a business out of this.
Yeah, so it started like most other things. It started as a hobby. I think the first few months were, frankly, I don't know what's the statute of limitations on food business law. First few months were skirting the lines of legality.
Yeah.
You know, selling sauce out of a trunk.
Right.
You know, I was, and then I realized, well, I need to go legit, and so I did the research, and of course, you need a little bit of money, but not that much. I think that business, Guglielmo Sauce, was started for about $7,000, which is, you know, I don't want to say it's not a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money really when you think about what it can cost
start a
to start.
business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I didn't have $7,000, and so before I could ever start the business, I had to find $7,000.
Right.
and so I was terrified to ask anybody for that money because I just assumed that they would tell me how stupid of an idea it was. And so I went and just earned it, and I got a second job, a third job, and eventually even a fourth job.
Wow.
And I just earned a little bit by little bit for a little over a year and saved up about $4,000, and then the other $3,000 I put on a credit card.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And launched in August of 2014.
So dollar by dollar.
Yeah.
So help me understand. So, you know, actually, when I was 25 and I decided I want to start a business, I ended up starting a magazine, as I think you know. But like, I like to make sauce too, and one of my ideas was, I'll have Mamano sauce. That sounds great.
Yeah.
But I literally walked into Wegmans and looked at all the different sauces, Prego, Ragu, etc. And I said to myself, how would I ever be able to compete with these big brands?
Yeah.
Now you did the same thing, but you thought something differently, right?
Yeah. So there were two, I thought, like lights at the end of that tunnel because I had the same exact experience. I walked in, I saw all the sauces, and I went, oh, we don't stand a chance. But there were two things. One was my wife worked in marketing, and I also worked in radio and was often responsible for writing commercial ad copy. And there was some training I had undergone, and some of the best advice I ever got was, when you're selling something, don't sell the thing, sell the emotion that you'll feel. For example, this is a mug of water, right? Right here. So instead of selling you the I don't know, the porcelain and the H2O, I'm gonna sell you how refreshing it is gonna taste when you, with all that thirst that you've acquired from doing this show, finally you just get to drink that.
The water tastes so much better out of these mugs for some reason.
It's ice cold, refreshing, right? So like you're selling how you're gonna feel when you use the thing. And I didn't see that on the shelf. I saw a lot of braggadocious. I saw a lot of, this is the best sauce ever. And then I saw a lot of, price plays, $1.99 or 99 cents.
Right,
And so I thought, well, maybe there's some room to just kind of strike the emotional chord. And my wife and I both thought that of just, what if we don't say we're the best? And honestly, I don't think you can find anywhere in any marketing we've done in the last 10 years where I ever say we have the best sauce.
Right.
People will say it to me, but I never say it's the best sauce you'll ever try.
Yeah.
That's never been the thing.
Yeah.
And we knew we wouldn't be the cheapest. So it was just, let's just remind them of what it was like to go to Grandpa's house on Sunday.
Yeah.
That was the whole idea.
You actually have, it's called Sunday sauce, right?
Sunday sauce, yeah. And the second thing was pasta sauce. At that time, there was this company that still exists that does a huge business called Rayo's. I'm sure you've seen the Rayo's sauce. And they had kind of created a new category, which was premium sauce.
Yeah.
Ragu and Prego owned that forever. They owned that. And then finally, Rayo's came out and went, you know what?
Yeah.
Here's a damn good sauce, and it's $9.
Right, a jar.
And
right,
and then it worked, and people started buying it. And so all of a sudden, I'm going, maybe you can sell a $6 or $7 jar.
Is there someplace in the middle, right?
Yeah, maybe there's a place in there. And that wasn't the first by any means. Rayo's really created that. They deserve that credit.
Where are they based out of? They're not local, are they?
Rayo's, do you know the story of Rayo's? I hate to promote Rayo's, but it's a great story. They're a restaurant in New York City. It's like a 12-seat restaurant, impossible to get a reservation at. And so that was the whole allure is just kind of, it's this exclusive, impossible, restaurant experience.
Interesting. I did not know that.
And celebrities eat there. That's the
Right.
You have to know somebody.
Robert De Niro eats there, and
totally. Like you have to know somebody. You cannot just show up at Rayo's and get a seat. So they had a story, and they went out with that. And so that's why they went out with the $9 sauce. It wasn't like $9 sauce, please buy it. Their whole thing was $9 sauce. You're welcome.
Right. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
And I was like, that's cool, And we never went with you're welcome.
Well, you went with something different. I've heard this story where when you were looking at all the shelves, you also found another opportunity to stand out, right?
Yeah, you talk about just the label?
Yeah. I mean, your labels stand out.
Yeah, I think
fun.
so too. Yeah. So we went to an artist, a guy named Marshall Statt, Rochester guy, went to an artist and toyed with some ideas. And we had some ideas. Something was a lot more contemporary, had some really high quality photography on it.
Yeah.
And then there was children's book. Yeah. And I wanted the children's book. And everyone I knew, my family, we all wanted it to look like, I just pictured a woman in her mid-40s with her kids walking through the aisles at Pittsford Wegmans. I wanted her to see our jar of sauce and go, oh, that's adorable.
Yeah.
That was all I wanted to accomplish.
Right, yeah.
And so I just said it should look like a children's book.
Yeah.
And that was another huge breakthrough.
Yeah.
Well, people love that
totally
label.
stands out.
Yeah.
I mean, how many brands do you have now of sauce?
So of Guglielmo sauce, there's about 10 of them, and only like 5 are out at any given time. Some of them are seasonal or special releases and things like that.
Yeah. That's a different label for each one, obviously.
Yep.
And I think the best way to say it is that they're just fun. They're fun to look at.
Yeah, and adorable, hopefully.
Yeah, and adorable.
And a little story on the side. And then one of the other big kickers was my cell phone number. My real, honest-to-God cell phone number is still on every jar of sauce. You can walk into Wegmans right now, pick up a jar of sauce, and there's a phone number on that, and that is this phone
calls
right here. I do.
Wow.
I do.
Let's say it's good. Like
it's usually good. I would say everyone always thinks like, oh, do you get negative haters or prank calls? The one negative is I get like a lot of solicitation.
Oh,
that's the one. A lot of just like. Yeah. Where do you buy your corrugate? Who are you using for freight?
Yeah. We've got a jar for you, right?
Yeah.
Well, I also want to hit this on the head, ladies. He is married, so don't use the number. Ryan would be very upset with that, right? So, very good. So, and actually, to this camera, hold up your arm here. He's so dedicated to his service over here, right? Show it to that guy.
The original. So my original idea was to get a couple of peppers and like an onion and a garlic, and I wanted it to be the recipe. I wanted it to be the whole recipe.
Right. Yeah.
And I just never. I still would do that. I just need to go sit down. I need to reserve a whole day.
So those are San Marzano tomatoes.
These are just Roma tomatoes. I guess. But but I wanted. I still might do that whole sleeve of just the whole, so I could just say, here's the recipe for the sauce.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Very cool. So you got the sauce company going.
Yeah.
And you were able to finally leave radio because you were supporting yourself.
Yeah, it was 6 years later. So it was, it's funny because we just made some news for doing not to skip ahead in the story, but for doing a construction at our plant. We're more than doubling our size.
Wow.
And one of the reporters said, to what do you attribute your overnight success?
Overnight,
It's been a decade.
Right,
It's not been overnight. It's not been overnight.
Yeah, well, a lot of people think that. People, they asked Jerry Seinfeld, like, the overnight success. He's like, when he did the show, right?
Yeah.
Overnight. I was doing stand-up comedy for 20 years before I got the show.
Yes,
you know? So,
yeah. It's not overnight. But it was 6 years between just that first rolling out to one arts festival and actually saying, I'm ready to leave my full-time job.
Yeah.
And I have, the idea that I think is the real idea.
Yeah.
So,
but then, as an entrepreneur, and you've been just bootstrapping it, right? No investors, especially in the beginning, right?
Yes, at the beginning it was completely bootstrapped.
Yeah.
Now in 2020 things did change. We took a little pivot. Guglielmo sauce still a huge deal to me, and still exists, and it's still my baby. But I really felt like I understood or started to see that there was a really big problem to solve in manufacturing of small to medium scale manufacturing. Yeah. This area is littered with really good, large industrial co-packers. Yeah. But if you wanted to try Mamano sauce and you wanted to try to launch it, and you Googled right now, co-packers near me, you're going to call some companies that are going to tell you that it's going to cost you 6, maybe even 7 figures to launch because of the just very high minimums and also all the hoops that they want you to jump through. Yeah. And so I was constantly, because I was the guy on the radio, because the cell phone number was on the jar, I was constantly hearing from people who just wanted to know, how'd you get started? Yeah. I own this restaurant and we've got the best wing sauce you've ever had, or I've got grandma's soup recipe, or just a million different things. Yeah. I started to say, Guglielmo sauce is good, and it was a nice little side hustle. Yeah. But the real opportunity here might actually be to solve small to medium-sized co-packing, manufacturing of sauces in this area. Yeah. And that was 2020.
So you had the idea then, and then how did you market that? How did people find out that you were doing that? Or you just already had a lot of people that had contacted you about it?
Yeah, so at that point, I had a decent amount of media about just Guglielmo sauce over the years. And so this was early 2020. You know that little snippet of 2020 before COVID? Yes. This was like late 2019, very early 2020. So when I say 2020, everyone automatically goes to COVID year, but this was like that little January, February of 2020. And I had a guy who is my business partner today, but before that had been my mentor and just a friend, this guy named Tom Riggio, who had a ton of experience in food. He has been working in consumer packaged goods for his entire life and had some real hits, worked for some real big national brands that you would recognize. Yeah. And we had become friends, and like I said, he'd become a mentor. And so as I presented him this idea of, I think there's a problem to be solved here. Yeah. I knew it was not going to be cheap to start manufacturing, and I couldn't afford to do it by myself. Yeah. And so was I bankable? I didn't know, but I'd rather go to a friend and a mentor first.
Somebody you trust, yeah.
I went to him and basically, the good old-fashioned back of a napkin business plan pitch of here's what I think we could do. Yeah. I did a SWOT analysis,
Wow, look at you go. So sophisticated, right? You didn't know that was 10 years ago, right?
No, not at all. I did a little SWOT analysis, and then I got him drunk. Yeah. And we had, and that's only a half joke. We had about a 4-hour lunch at Bronca. And at the end of the 4-hour lunch, he was like, let me think about it. Yeah. And I was on pins and needles. And then the next day I called him and I was like, there's a few things I forgot to mention. Right. And he was like, relax, we're doing it. I was like, great.
You're like, phew.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I love you and your story because you're so humble about it, right? I remember you spoke at one of my events years ago, and you were like, I can't believe Dave asked me to do this. You go to Tony Robbins' seminar, and Tony's like, you can do it. You're not going to fail. And, I'm like, I get up every morning, I'm like, I'm probably going to fail. I don't know if I could do this, right? I mean, that's you, you're just, you're open about being vulnerable, right? Yeah. Brene Brown would love you if you know her. She's all about being vulnerable, right? Yeah. And you're very humble about your success. But I have to say, it must be, you were a guy with a radio job that, started making, a couple hundred bottles of sauce. And now, you're running a pretty big operation. Yeah. I mean, how did you get the skills and the confidence to be able to do something like that from just being somebody who was
I love talking to you about this stuff because I feel like we can deep dive a couple of the things. I think one thing that is really important that separates a really good business owner, entrepreneur, from people who just, they excel, they're smart, they're great, they excel, but they can't get over this one thing is that, man, am I cool with being wrong? Yeah. I'm very cool with being wrong, and I don't need to be right, and I don't need my opinion to be the loudest in the room. And I love, this next part sounds corny and cliche, but it's true, and that is, I just love putting people in the room who know this better than I do, and then just kind of stating the problem, and then just letting us all discuss it, and then it kind of comes, and I'm good at listening to their advice. So there's a lot that I'm bad at, but one thing I'm pretty good at is I don't need to be right, and I love to have people that know better than me help me, and people are so willing to help. They're so willing to help. I do think also as an entrepreneur you have to be risk tolerant. That's another thing that I think stops some people. They can get high, but they can't quite get to the hump of actually owning the thing because they just can't handle that amount of risk. And it is stress. And frankly, you know, I wear the stress. Like this is the stress. It's not healthy. It's bad, but there's a lot of stress involved because there's just a ton of risk involved.
Well, how many people do you have on payroll now?
14.
Yeah. So, and I mean, every other week they need their paycheck.
Yeah.
Do you ever wake up at 3 in the morning and think about that?
So luckily it's been a good couple of years, but 4 years ago, it was in June of 2020, so just a few months after we started, I went out, and it's the only time in my profession, I've cried personally a lot of times. I've cried at the end of movies.
Right. Oh yeah.
I've cried when my son was born. You know,
absolutely.
I will cry.
Right.
But I've only cried once professionally but it was brought on by work, and it was exactly what you're talking about. It was this, started, and I remember we had, X amount in the bank, and I thought, we're good. Start manufacturing, good with that amount in the bank. And then it's just bleeding. Just the beginning of a business is just bleeding money. You're just freaking bleeding. And I'm just looking at the payroll, and I'm doing the math, and I'm like, we've got like 3 payrolls in us right now. And I went out in my car, I cried for a little bit, and then I essentially figured out that I needed to make there was something I was doing that was a really bad move. And it was that I was trying to be liked by everybody, and I needed to change one thing. I needed to call all of my customers, and I needed to offer them an incentive to pay me right now, because I had some receivables, but I didn't have the money. I needed it right now. So I called everybody. I was relatively transparent. I didn't say I was desperate, because you got to be careful. But I was relatively transparent about just, hey, we're a young business. We're just starting out. Cash flow's a thing. You know how it is. And I'll tell you what, we can offer you a 2% discount on your bill right now if you pay within the next 2 days. And I was able to drum up a little cash. Then the other thing I did, because I was trying to be Mr. Nice Guy, was as I was acquiring vendors early on, is I was giving them whatever terms they told me. So if they said, you're a COD, Paulie, or you're a net 15, Paulie, and I started to fight back against that and say, hey, I'm a net 30, And I remember too, because I felt like I didn't have a leg to stand on, but also I just pretended that I did. So I just called and I said, oh, I'm sorry, our terms are net 30. As if they existed.
That's the way it is.
Hey, that's the way it is, or like they. So. That's what they're telling me we only accept net 30 terms. So long story short, I got everyone who owed me money needed to be net 15, and everyone I owed money needed to be net 30. And I hadn't done good with that in the first couple of months, and so that few months in, I said, this is the change I need to make.
What a great business lesson. A good cry.
Just
get the cry out.
And then a bunch of phone calls.
Figure it out. Figure out, like, what do I got to do? No. And that's a great lesson for a lot of kind of startup entrepreneurs, where it is a lot of money in that beginning of investing in people and resources and product, and the money's not coming in yet. I mean, it took you 4 to 6 years, I think, to get the flywheel turning, as you were saying, right? And sometimes you got to come up with ideas to get people to pay up front and then manage that money well, right? So
totally.
That's a great lesson. Well, and I also love too that, and it's just you, because I think why people love you so much is because you don't pretend to be something you're not. You're like, I don't know. Let's figure it out. But most bosses, most CEOs, business owners, they try to fake it until they make it, right? And people can tell, And there, John Maxwell has a great saying. John Maxwell's a great leadership coach, right? And he says, as a CEO, if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that great?
Smart.
You've already embodied that.
It's true, because if I'm the smartest person in the room, then we are limited to my competency, which isn't infinite. So we need. And by the way, when you're running a business, there's 1,000 aspects. And so nobody's going to be competent in all 1,000 things. There's nobody who can do everything. So like you need the resource. So, and the other thing is, you say, oh, you hire the people smarter than you. But at the beginning, you can't hire people. So I already used the word, and I'll use it again, mentors. Before you can hire them, because you can't afford them, have them become a mentor, be a friend, and don't just go to them because you need to pick their brain. become a resource for them as well. And so one of my early things I did as well is that I started to volunteer as much as I could. I got involved with many local charities, and then those people were really there for me when I needed some business advice. Because mostly those boards are made up of local executives, and so I would go to their event and vend my sauce and donate 500 meatballs, and then a couple weeks later I would say, "Can we get coffee?"
That's fantastic.
I'm wondering what you think about this, and then I would get advice from somebody who had 30 years of experience.
I did when I was 25 and I started my magazine. I was working at Mario's. Via Abruzzi was called at the time. Serving meatballs and ravioli at night. I was a magazine publisher by day. But at night I was schlepping, meatballs and whatever. And I ended up waiting on Tom Golisano as executive assistant.
Cool.
So I put my big pants on and I got the nerve up to say, do you think Mr. Golisano would meet with me? I just started a business. And she said in a nice but kind of like cute way, like, "Oh, I don't know, Sonny." But I said, "Well, I have my new business card. Can you at least ask him?" And she did. And she called me about a week later. And she's like, "You won't believe it, but Tom will meet with you." This is the height of like paycheck splitting, stock and growing. He's still running the company. And she's like, "Meet him at the North Side Inn for lunch on this day."
That's awesome.
I brought my notepad and I took tons of notes, and he gave me some great ideas, and we're friends to this day.
That's cool. You know what? I got a quick Tom Golisano for you too. So I used to do radio, right? And I did this show on weekends called CEOs You Should Know. And Tom Golisano was up to promote. He was actually not promoting. He was on some sort of a campaign. Birds were pooping in his yard.
I remember that. Yeah.
So he was like doing some media surrounding why he shouldn't have to pay for these taxes or something. And so I had asked, "Hey, if he's going to be up at the radio station, could I borrow him for this other show?" And the PR person somehow made it happen. And he came in the room kind of like he was going to lay down the law. We're not talking about Monica Seles, not talking about the Sabres, I'm not talking about running for governor. And I said, "Mr. Golisano, I just want to hear the story of Paychecks, founding of Paychecks." And he was like a kid, man. He was like, "Yeah, that would be great." And then he sat there for a half hour, and it was almost like I had to tell him we're done. Because like he loves entrepreneurship, and he loves talking about it, and he loves like giving advice to young people. And
got 2 books about it now.
And like if all you're really doing is asking him for advice, he's just getting asked for money so often that he's jaded because everyone wants money. But if you're just asking him for advice, he loves that.
Well, and so much so that you probably know he started the Golisano Institute of Entrepreneurship, Business and Entrepreneurship, and it's $8,900 a year for an education, right? So and there's a lot of scholarships. So he's done. It's good to hear that he helped you and me, and probably thousands of others.
Tons of people. I've got a couple, and it's probably not my privilege to say names. I know other business owners in Rochester who have very similar stories of just getting quick access to them, asking him a question, and then him like going above and beyond to help. That's great.
So take note, as you get older and more young people are coming to you, right? We'll always make time for them.
Right? I do. I really do. I feel I really hold that in my heart. And it's unbelievable to me that it's been 10 years, which is a long time, but it's not that long. It's unbelievable to me that it does happen now that sometimes people want my advice. And I never say no to that. I love that.
Well, it's a two-way street. I'm sure you get so much out of it, right? So,
yes.
So, and I don't know if we mentioned the name of the second company, but it's Craft Cannery. And I thought it was about a year ago, but apparently it's been almost 2 years, I guess. But you won like a big contest, like business award contest, right?
So in November of 2022, we won something called Grow New York. I'd say we won. We came in second. We didn't win. We came in second.
That's winning. Come on.
Out of, I think there were 390 applicants. So it's pretty good.
You can even round that up to 400. So, So, I mean, that's incredible.
But it's not just New York businesses either. It's the whole world. It's an international contest. And it's basically, think of it like Shark Tank. Put on by New York State Economic Development and Cornell University. So we were hometowners. We had a little bit of a hometown advantage, I feel. But in general, any money they give away has to be spent in this region. So that's a big deal. In the Grow New York region, they call it. So we were already operating here. So I felt like we had some bonus points. But we weren't the only local company ever to be in this competition. So it's not like that's an automatic win by any means. But the thing is, the previous year, in 2021, I had went with Genesee County, and they had offered me, "Hey, do you want to set up shop at our kiosk and talk to people?" And so I went, and the kiosk area kind of, you've been to these conventions, right? It kind of dies down, and now it's all about watching these pitches. And I sit there and I watch the pitches, and over, it comes up that these pitches are talking about, what are they going to do with their money? They're going to find manufacturing.
Right.
They're going to find manufacturing.
Wow.
Over and over, I just keep on hearing about how where are your holdups? And then in the Q&A, the sharks, they've got to ask these questions, and the questions are always about manufacturing hiccups and what are you going to do for manufacturing, and you've got to do your manufacturing, grow New York if you win in the grow New York region if you win this money. Is there a manufacturer in this region who can make your product? I'm sitting there going, I'm just sitting there going like, holy crap. It feels like if I were to get on that stage, if they said next business, craft cannery, Guglielmo, and I got up there and I went, I'm a manufacturer. That I could be done. That's the whole thing.
You win. Right here.
And so I kind of kept that in the back of my head. And then a few months later, applications opened for 2022. And sure enough, I entered and said, hey, we are a manufacturer. We are catering to startups. And the other thing was, they're going to fund these businesses. And about a third of our business is helping startups start their business. And so I also knew that I had this killer last line. In my 10-minute pitch was going to end with me saying, if you fund us, you don't just fund one entrepreneur, you fund dozens, maybe even hundreds of entrepreneurs to start their business.
Did you drop the mic then?
So I knew I had the fact that I was a manufacturer, the fact that I could end on saying that. There were one or two other things too, is the fact that we had real revenue. We were profitable in 2022. We had already built something pretty special. And also I'm watching these pitches and pitch after pitch after pitch. Not that there's anything wrong with this, but you hear these two words that every once in a while make me just kind of go, and that is pre-revenue, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. Everyone's pre-revenue at some point. But also, every time you hear that, you go, oh, okay, so they're not, they don't have any sales yet. And you clock that. And again, everyone's been there, and it's okay. So I'm not crapping on it. But you do clock the fact that there's no sales yet, and we were post-revenue.
You were current revenue, right?
And then even the companies that do have revenue project that they'll be profitable in 3 to 5 years. And I'm going, wow, we're profitable right now.
We're already there,
So I thought between being a manufacturer, being profitable with real revenue, and being able to say that last killer line, I was like, I think we stand a chance. And we came in second, and the team that beat us invented a pill for cows to eat that makes their farts, can I say fart on this podcast?
You can,
That makes their farts contain less methane, which is better for the environment.
Wow.
So that's the team that beat us.
Well, how do you compete with that, right?
Cow farts, it's impossible.
You lost the cow farts, but I got to tell you. No, I'm sure they were very impressed with you because, like you said, you already were, a proven success as you as a person, a business owner too, with the sauce. And then the cannery, so that's amazing.
There's the SME, which I had to learn what that was. SME, subject matter expert.
Yes.
So because I had gone through this whole hoops, all the Guglielmo sauce stuff for all those years, I was to them, they're going, oh, you have a subject matter expert in the CEO role. And I'm going, oh. Oh, me?
Is that me?
Thank you.
Yep. That's awesome. So what's next? I mean, do you have other ideas to, have the compound effect of your growth?
So I mentioned before a third is like the startups. Another third for us is really restaurants. We can help bulk for them. And then also restaurants are just looking for ways to extend their brand into grocery stores. And then the other third for us is like the regional brands that already exist. So private labeling for like Wegmans and a couple other clients. There's some confidentiality involved in who I'm allowed to talk about, but more regional brands that you would have heard of. And so there's been some real good opportunity there. And so what's next for us is we are expanding our building. Right now we are a very small little 5,000 square foot, little engine that could in Bergen, New York. And we are expanding. The construction is happening as we speak. We are adding 6,300 square feet, so more than doubling our building. Yep. And with that, there will be new equipment and the ability to double our production. And so we are hoping to be able to double, and then we only run one shift. So we're going to invest in the construction. We're investing in currently. The equipment will come a little bit later this year. And then after that, it's double automatically, just with the equipment. And then double that again with a B shift, a second shift.
Wow.
That's the plan for the next 3 years.
Is it kind of exciting yet terrifying?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Well, because you know what it is? It's because there's been 3 times in this whole thing. I do love talking to you because we get into the nitty gritty of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been 3 times that I had to really leverage in order to make something happen. That $3,000 on that credit card back in 2014.
Yeah, right? Because you don't like debt.
Don't like debt.
I remember that. Yeah.
In 2020, getting the business started, I had the investor, but still, they took on a little bit of debt. Right there, right? So from 2014 to 2020, worked hard, got out of that debt, and got into the black. Then in 2020, it was the same thing. Got into a little bit of debt starting this, worked hard, got into the black, and now in 2024, it's with the construction, it's back to the debt.
Right.
And it's going to be, it's every time it's been a bigger.
Right. Yeah.
And this one is going to take a couple years to dig out of, but I think we're set up for it. Yeah.
Well, the metaphor I use for like even starting the business in these new levels is you're at that amusement park with the really scary roller coaster that you really want to go on, and you stand in line and you're excited and you get on it, right, and the bar comes down and it locks in and you're going on this ride.
It's happening.
So part of you is like really excited. And part of you wants to like throw up all over the place, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
But you're locked in and it starts moving. I'm like, all right, let's make this happen.
Yep, absolutely.
But you were smart in the fact that taking on a business partner is always risky, but I think it sounds like you took on, the right, as they say, yin to your yang.
Yeah.
And it started out as a friend and mentor. So it was like somebody you could trust.
Yeah.
Really important.
And being that we knew each other for a couple of years, I feel like we vetted each other and realized that, anybody you're with enough, you're eventually going to, at some point, not see eye to eye.
Yeah.
We realized if we ever didn't see eye to eye on something, we'd be able to talk it through. It wasn't going to become a toxic thing. It was just going to be okay, let's talk about it.
Right.
And to be honest with you, in 4 years, we've had like 2 maybe times, and I would say it was solved within an hour.
Yeah.
Other than that, smooth sailing, and also, and I think this is incredibly important, opposite skill sets, different skill sets.
Yeah.
Stuff that was just going to be his thing that I wasn't going to, I want to be in the loop, and same thing with he wants to be in the loop with what I'm up to, but it's sort of like, you know what, you are the expert on that, and just keep me in the loop, and I'm the expert on this, and I'll keep you in the loop, and we will together get us there. And so I think it was, the idea that we knew each other for a couple of years was a really good experience. We were sort of accidentally vetting each other for years before we said, all right, let's do this.
Well, you look at a lot of successful businesses, everything even from Microsoft to Apple to Disney. Walt, there was Roy Disney too. And Walt always said I would be bankrupt in the first 5 years of business without Roy.
Yeah.
And Roy liked being behind the scenes, and he made sure he would question Walt. Are you sure you want to do that?
Yes.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the strategy. Let's talk about the finances behind it. Yeah. And it was and then. So it seems like you guys have that type of relationship.
You need that alliance. You need that thing where it's like, look, to the world, I've got your back and you got mine, and it doesn't matter what somebody says about you or what somebody says about me. I will defend you to death, and you will do the same for me. But when that door closes, it's just me and you. I need you to question me.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm going to question you.
Yeah.
And I think we're good about that. And to your point, I have had a couple times in the last 4 years where I had thought, I'm on the rails, and I'm going, maybe we should. And he's been like,
yeah.
And he's been right every time.
Yeah.
He's been right every time.
So then you respect that more and more, and you're like, all right.
Yeah. There's been a couple times where I'm going, now I think back to myself and I go, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I had decided to, at one point I was like, I'm going to create a promotions team, and we're going to go out and we're going to work a festival or a farmer's market every single day.
Yeah.
And he just kind of talked me through the numbers and the time and all of it.
Use your time, right?
And he's just kind of going I don't know if that's, and I remember there was, this might sound crass, I'm sorry to the audience, but I'll just tell you exactly how it was, because I just remember him going, so you pack up everything, you set up Friday night, you work the whole weekend, you get back Sunday, you miss your family, you skip your weekend, you're back at work Monday morning. And how much did you make at that festival,
Yeah.
And I'd tell him, and he'd go, then he'd go, and how long did it take us to make that just now, running that product in there? It took us an hour to what you just did in an entire weekend. It just took us 1 hour in that production room.
Yeah.
Why? Why are you exploring going every weekend
when
you should just be doubling and tripling down on what we can do in that production room?
Yep.
And I just was like, damn it.
You're right.
Damn it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, so there's a popular coaching brand called EOS. and it stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And the core of their coaching system is that the companies must be run by two people. One is the visionary, and one is what they call the integrator. And the integrator is, I'll say, the Roy behind the Walt, right? And it sounds like you guys have that type of relationship.
Yeah.
Where you're like, your mind's going, new ideas, new directions.
Totally.
And your partner is saying, okay.
He's saying, so let's go to the bank account.
Let's talk it through.
And let's look at every single transaction the last week and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And then also let's go to the P&L and let's look at every single line on the P&L and let's dive in and see, how we got there. And and that's good because I definitely, compared to him, I'm not a numbers person compared to him. I'm okay with understanding numbers. I can read a profit and loss report. I understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I'm like really good at it.
Right.
I'm not really good at it.
Never wanted to be a CPA.
I'm like proficient in it and I understand.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's going to look at that. Then we talk on every Wednesday and we're going to go line by line and he's going to say, here's exactly what I'm seeing. And here's the tweaks we could make.
Yeah.
And every time he says it, then I kind of translate it into actual, okay, how does that actually implement itself within this plant?
Yeah.
And it's a good team.
Yeah. Well, you both are taking advantage of what you do best.
Yeah, I think so.
If I were to ask you, what is your superpower? Like, what is like the one thing that you do really well that has helped the company grow? What would that be?
It probably is resilience. I think it's resilience. I think that there's been so many. You said the roller coaster. I've just seen unfortunately, so many people who just, when that roller coaster does this, they don't want anything to do with it. And I'm just like, I won't let it. We're not gonna.
Just power through it.
We're getting through it. We're getting through it because this is coming.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it has been and I feel like I've installed it in my team and I've got such good people on my team right now. I feel like they also see, we got dealt a crappy hand here or there, or this happened or that happened. But you know what though? It's just a matter of let's fix it. Let's move on. It's not stopping us. We're not going to go sit in the corner. Yeah. And you probably have to. I've been around it. I've seen people who will go and just go, well, I give up. Yeah. I give up.
No, what Winston Churchill says, when you're walking through hell, keep on walking. Right?
Yeah.
You get through it. Don't stop.
Yeah. Keep going. Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
And that is great advice for an entrepreneur because there's going to be some times when you have to go out to your car, cry it out, but come back and fight another day, right?
Yeah. I remember talking to somebody to open a pizza shop in town. He's a great kid, and he was telling me he was having his worst day, and I remember I was having a great day that day. Yeah. And I told him, I said, just get to tomorrow. Just get to tomorrow.
Yeah. Just maybe the day before you were having a bad day, right?
Yeah. I said, just like if you can just get to tomorrow. It'll be better than today.
Great advice.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Paul, this has been so fantastic on many levels because not only learning about your business journey, which is I'm going to say it's delicious. It's a delicious story. It really is. But also, too, just talking entrepreneurship because you're the epitome of the entrepreneur's entrepreneur.
Yeah, it still doesn't feel like it. Still doesn't feel like it though. You know what I mean? Like
that's why people love you.
I feel like I don't. I hear that and I go, I don't even think I deserve that. Title.
Stay humble. Stay humble, my friend.
Yeah.
You're going to do great things. You already are, and you'll continue to do so.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everything you do too. I mean, you're such a champion for the entrepreneurs in this community, and you've given us like so many opportunities to just like sound off and talk and get together and stuff. And so it's remarkable. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Hey, so hopefully we got more people that have fallen in love with you. They want to get in touch.
Hope so.
What's the best website, email? I guess pick up the sauce, your phone number. What's the best way to?
This also blows people's minds like this. Ready? My cell is 585-350-5788. Shoot me a text, because if you call me, I'm going to think you're a solicitor, and I'll just ignore it. Shoot me a text and say, I'm a real person. Yeah. and then I'll say, oh, cool, call me.
Yeah. And if they want to learn more about you as far as company-wise, what's the website?
Craftcannery.com.
Craftcannery.com.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, Paulie. Thank you so much.
Oh, man.
Loved having you on the show.
Thank you.
One of my longest interviews today, but it was worth every minute. So thank you so much. No, don't be. I love it. So thanks again. And thanks, everybody, so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying these interviews, especially this one. The goal here is just to interview people doing really incredible things, optimizing their business, their leadership, their people, their community, their culture, etc., getting their best practices and sharing them with you. So again, as they say, the high tide raises all the ships so we can be a better community. Thank you so much. Optimize Show every Wednesday morning. Like us, love us, share us, subscribe to the whole works. And make sure to stay awesome.